All right, I'm recording. Welcome to spring, yes, spring 2022. We made it out of the 20s. CIT 225. I am Brother Stevic. I will be your host and guide through the world of MySQL databases. If you've taken intro to databases, there's going to already before this one, which a lot of you did, there'll be some similar stuff we're going to talk about here. We're going to do a little bit of deeper dive. I talk a lot about how to actually design databases. The assignment, so there's two parts to this class. The majority of this class, the reading assignments, the quizzes, the writing assignments, the exercises, they're all about how to write efficient SQL code. How to use your select statements, your insert statements, your update statements, get your create statements going. Later on in the course, we're going to talk about indexes. We're going to briefly talk about indexes. We're going to briefly talk about views. We're going to spend a lot of time on joins. If those words mean anything to you, great. If not, you'll figure it out. One student had emailed me earlier in the week and said something like he read some of the books and he said, like, this is like reading a foreign language. How would he suggest I go on? Hang on a second. And I said, you're very right. It is like reading a foreign language. So the way is just slow and steady through it. We'll talk about that. I will give examples of the code. We'll talk about the code. I'll give you some real deep dives into the code that you never really wanted to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway on how the code actually works behind the scenes. Because that's really, I love knowing how the computer does what I ask it to. So a lot of times in these Wednesday nights, I might go off on a tangent for 10 minutes explaining how a select query actually works and what it does first and how it gets the information back, because I tragically find that interesting. So the second part of this class is the design part. And so right around week 7 or 8 is where we're going to kind of shift gears. Okay. So weeks 1 through 7, we're going to talk about code. The majority of our classwork on Wednesday nights will be talking about code, how to write code, giving you examples, showing you how to do things, explaining in detail. So that's about 80% of our time. 20% of our time is going to be talking about the final project. And you wonder, it's week 1. It's literally day 3. Why are you talking about the final project? Well, the final project requires a little bit of work. It's a fun project. It's everyone who's done it has enjoyed it. And it is the element of design of this class. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. We'll discuss that a little bit. So a little bit about my background. I started life as a drama teacher. I have a master's degree in fine arts and acting and directing. I worked with the Royal Shakespeare Company for 3 months during my master's degree studies. I was their liaison at my university. I know a lot about drama, theater, Shakespeare. None of that is pertinent here at all. I just like talking about it because I like talking about it. Theater, that is. In 2000, I decided that I wanted a job that paid money. So I got into public education and I started doing computers. I started teaching computers. From 2000 to 2004, I was one of the top trainers for Microsoft SQL Server products in the country. I was one of the first 200 people certified in the world to write C# code. That and $1 will get me a cheeseburger at McDonald's these days. But it was kind of fun. C# code, I still write a little bit. My current job, I don't do any of that anymore. But I am literally self-taught in the world of SQL Server. They needed a teacher for Microsoft SQL Server, so I learned how to do that. I haven't upgraded any of my SQL Server certifications in the last couple of years because I went from actual hands-on DBA to management, team lead, and things like that. I'm currently the lead engineer for database as a service systems at a company called Leidos, where I don't do any hands-on work more. I just design the environment, do the upgrade paths for Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle. So I've been doing this a while. So I've been in the DBA field for 2022. So I started in 2000, so 22 years. That's easy math there. On a personal note, I'm married. I've got 6 kids. One lives at home right now. 3 live in Utah with their mom, and one is married and one is serving a mission in Orem, Utah. So if anyone's in Orem, Utah, I'll give you his name. Buy the kid a burger he needs to eat. Like I said before, I've watched every sci-fi fandom that has come out from 1975 to present. So I know if any fandom you're into, I will talk about it. I'm currently reading all the Brandon Sanderson books because one of my sons got me into him. I'm reading him. He's really quite good. And I didn't realize he was a professor at BYU. That's really the thing about me. Any questions about me? Anything you're dying to know about me so far? Knowing that I'm into comic book sci-fi and as drama teacher explains my teaching style. So if we were in a room together, the last classroom I taught in years ago, I had arranged it to every wall was a whiteboard. So I drew everywhere. I love drawing and I do my best on the whiteboard here, but it's not really the same thing. Okay. Any questions about me? We going? Okay, we go
I don't think so.
All right. Ask me anything. I'm pretty much open. I'll answer any questions. Also, if you ask a question, be prepared for the answer because I will answer it. If you ask me like some kind of deep dive question of SQL Server, I will go down that rabbit hole with you and I'll explain everything to you about how the engine works. All right. So this week's assignment is just really installing SQL Server, getting it to work, creating users. There is one part of the assignment I'm going to tell you about right now. It's the command line interface. Matter of fact, your week 1 writing assignment is, which is better, the command line interface or the GUI interface? I'm not going to tell you which I prefer until the end of the week. But if for some reason you can't get the command line interface to work, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. It's buggy. About 30% of students can't get it to work and they panic. Don't panic. It's fine. If it doesn't work, it's fine. As long as you can get into this here. Let me pull this up. As long as you can get into, come on, buddy. You got it. You can do this. I know it's been a while. There we are. As long as you can get into here and you get into My Connections and you can open up the workbench, you're totally fine. This is where you want to do your work. Do not, please, do not. And this is why I start the week in the matrix, because the CLI is the matrix. It's hard to understand. It looks really cool. It's just not worth the problems. Do everything in the workbench. Okay. So the CLI doesn't work. That's not a big deal. So
that was going to be one of my questions.
If the CLI doesn't work, yeah.
Mine works and I can get it to work. I have a question about the 3 steps down there because the first and third appear to be the same. I'm not sure why.
Because you did this. So the first one is you granting your stuff, your permission on root, which is just the system. And then this next one here will actually just grant on Sakilla. So
okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm confused. Mm-hmm. I say I'm confused because those 2 statements are identical.
Yeah.
So but how does the third one know it's not something other than Sakilla?
Because of these 2 statements in between. Because you're creating the student user and then you're writing. So here you're giving the student user wasn't created prior to this.
Right.
So you're giving yourself and then you're creating the student user and this is giving student user granting alter root.
Okay. So when I create the user, I'm no longer admin, I'm student.
You're admin creating user, right?
Right.
And then you're granting, no, wait a second. Skill database is large. Oh, so the Skill database uses large file uploads, MySQL's load command, which means you have to grant 1 more additional global privilege. So that's what this one's doing. I don't know why that is. For me, it's always been this. If you don't do this, student doesn't have the permissions it's needed. So when you log in as student, you won't have the permissions you need to do anything if you don't run this after. Because this one you're granting permission for student to root. So just go with it.
Okay.
Just go
So
with it.
on that, so on the workbench, I don't even know if it's the homepage, but where the local host, where we connect.
Mhm.
So we should have the local host one and then that one, right?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
gives the student privileges, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So the CLI is fun, and the CLI gives you job security. I remember when my first job coding, it was a part-time gig, and I wanted them to think I was really super cool and super smart. So I opened up the command prompt and I did all my work from the command prompts as opposed from the workbench. And it made it look like it made my job look really, really hard, and like only I could do it. If you want to do that, go for it. I went to the whole thing. I turned the screen green with the black with the green letters to make it look like an old CRT tube. But use the workbench.
Where, that's my question for the assignment on the CLI. Like it's saying, I'm understanding it as we're supposed to write 3 to 5 paragraphs on why we think the CLI is better.
Yeah.
Where do I find that information? Because it scares me to death. I read in the book.
So here's the thing about the essays. I don't think I've ever said to a class this early on. Thank you for asking the question. There's no right or wrong answers there. I mean, well, there are. I mean, like when you say like, what is a SQL statement? And what is a select statement? And you like start giving me a recipe for apple pie. That is obviously a wrong answer. But this is asking your opinion. I've had students who told me like the CLI isn't better than the workbench, and given reason why. You're not going to find it anywhere why it's better. It's just what your opinion is. I don't like, so let me put this out there. I didn't design this course. I didn't write the questions. I did add what's your favorite dinosaur to the initial questions, because I feel that's a question as I get older, that's not a question that I'm asked enough. So I will make moderate modifications here and there, but for the most part, I don't do this. And the people who designed this course obviously want you to use the CLI over the workbench. But feel free to offer your personal opinion after using both, what you think is better and why. Okay. Okay. So now let's talk about little things here. So we got here, you've got your book. Everyone's seen your book, right? Okay.
I've got my book.
You've got the book. Everyone's got the book. Both of y'all got the book. Anyone watching home, you got the book. Good. Don't try and read the book. Don't sit down and go chapter 1 and try to read it like a book. It's not going to be a pleasant experience. The programming books are not written to be read like that. Programming books, like the one you have as your textbook, is meant to be a resource, a lookup, an encyclopedia, if you will. Okay, so use that as a reference. Go to the index, find what you're looking for. Look that up. What is going to help you immensely are these link pages here. Okay, so when you're doing the student reading, I strongly recommend you look over all the links that are handed you here, because there are going to be some questions on the quizzes that come from the links. Okay. The PowerPoint slides are critical. There'll be information in there. It's really kind of scattered across the 4 winds. But I would put pertinence on the web pages and then review the book as you go through. All the quizzes, including the final exam, are open book. All quizzes, including the final exam, you have 2 attempts to complete and pass, and the higher score is taken. Okay. So again, don't worry about actually reading the book. Being a good DBA is not knowing the answers. It's knowing where to find the answers, because no one knows everything. It's impossible.
I had a web design instructor say that very thing.
Yep. He was a very good web designer because you can't know everything. And even now, I've been doing this 20 plus years. If I'm writing code for some reason, I still go look it up. You will see me in some of these Wednesday night sessions where I'm looking at code. I will go look it up to make sure I got the working right, because one of the reasons I have to do that is because T-SQL, Transact SQL, is the language that all RMDBSs use, remote relational model databases. RMDBSs all use T-SQL, which stands for Transactional Structured Query Language. But they all have different dialects. Like Microsoft SQL Server uses single quotes. MariaDB uses double quotes. Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle both use something called a full join. MySQL doesn't. So there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies that are in there, like the command accept doesn't work in MySQL. So there's a lot of things that I've got to look up to make sure I'm doing right because of the dialects between the multiple different versions of Transact SQL that exist. Okay, so yeah, so Transact SQL. So here, learn the relational model. We'll talk about that. So have you guys seen what they mean by relational model? So let me ask you this: what is it? What is it?
You're talking about the model with the crow's feet and
but
the lines and everything.
I want to simplify it as to
The ERD.
Yeah,
that's
ERD.
That's what I was looking for.
ERD stands for Entity Relationship Diagram. Where you'll hear me use that term many times over the next 14 weeks. So a relational database is. Did you know that an Excel spreadsheet is a database?
Yep.
Okay. But an Excel spreadsheet is just one big piece of paper that has a bunch of data on it. You have everything on it. You have like 50 columns going across. So everything is there, right? So what a relational database is, it's when you take that information and break it down into bite-sized chunks called tables. And those tables only have information that are pertinent to the name of that table. So if I had a customer spreadsheet, I'd have everything possible about the customer on that spreadsheet: name, address, phone number, age, birthday, what they bought, when they bought it, what their address is, stuff like that, right? When I make a table, I don't want the table to have that. I want the table, if I have a customer table, all I want is information that describes that specific customer that cannot be attributed to anyone else. So name, address, phone number, zip code. I wouldn't put things like, employer in his database, in that table, because many people have the same employer, right? So what relational databases are is we take those massively ridiculous spreadsheets of the past and convert them into a series of joined tables that have relationships based on the data and how it moves between them. Okay. We'll get into that more. You'll see some database designs. We'll talk about it, but this is all about how the data flows between the tables and gets ultimately sent out for the customer to look at. Because when you're on Amazon and you pull up and you're searching for, I don't know, Firefly t-shirts, and you're pulling some Firefly t-shirts, right? You're gonna see this beautiful display of t-shirts and their pictures and their prices and the descriptions, right? That's not what the database looks like. That information is held across like 20 different tables, and it's put up into this beautiful display for you to look at as the end user. Because if you saw it in its natural form, you'd never buy anything from Amazon. So that's what a relational model. A relational model is a series of tables that have specific data about what's in that title of the table and how it relates to everything else. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep.
And that's what an ERD is. We're going to be talking about that a lot. By the time we're done, you guys will be able to look at a database and do what we call normalize it. Normalizing is when you take data, you look at a database and make sure that every table only has data that's required to be in there and not any duplicate data. Because the biggest sin in databases is duplicate data. We don't want the same stuff in more than one place. Okay, off the pulpit for that one. Structured query language is what I said. It's the language we talk to SQL. And the beautiful thing about structured query language, it's English. It's select information from table where these are the conditions. It does not get easier than that. Select from where. And those are your 3 basic clauses. I want to put stuff in, it's the insert command. I want to change stuff that's there, it's the update command. I want to get rid of stuff, it's the delete command. The syntax makes it a little complicated, but you guys will get that. MySQL database management system, that's the whole backend, how the backend works, how it's stored on the disk. Don't worry about that right now. There'll be some talk about it. I've got good videos on that later. It's not super critical right now. Creating a database, use the create command. You guys will do that. How to use the CLI. And then here, this is stuff we'll learn over the course of your data types, table creation. During the course of the 14 weeks, we're going to do that. Okay. Okay. So your goal for this week is just to install SQL Server, create that database, run a couple of quick commands, and call it a day.
And write a paper.
Well, we're gonna get to the papers because there's a way out of the papers.
What?
Ooh, already? Okay. So let's talk. So I know we're in week 1, but there's a week 2 assignment we're going to talk about right now because it confuses everybody. No one wants to do it. It's very, very simple. And I'm going to talk right now. There is no paper in week 2. In week 2, what you need to do is reverse engineer a website. What does that mean? Well, reverse engineering means look how something is now and figure out how it got there. It's like looking at an apple pie. How did it get there? Well, someone had apples. Someone made that jelly stuff that was in the middle of it. Who knows how that got made? Someone made the dough. I think flour was involved. And so has anyone here, either of you two guys, have used Proctorio?
Yep.
Proctorio is Satan's punishment to the world.
Yes,
It really is really bad. So we don't want to use Proctorio. The purpose of Proctorio is to guarantee that you are the person doing the work that you said, and we have to have one assignment a semester that we see your happy, shiny faces delivering that assignment. It could be quiz number 6, or it could be reverse engineering website. So what this is you give me a 5 to 10 minute video uploaded to YouTube or someplace where it doesn't require a password for me to get to. And you take a website and you say, hey, look, let's see. Let me pull up a fun website here. Okay, I'm going to go to my, new campaign. I'm going to go here to games. I'm going to go to Magic the Gathering cards if I can figure out how to get there from here. Stores, no cool stuff, Inc. That's what I want here. Come on. Okay.
Don't tell my wife.
But Magic the Gathering, if you're not playing online, you are not playing. I love playing online. It makes me happy. It's free. All right.
She and my son play it all the time using Octagon.
Oh, really? Online?
Mm-hmm.
Arena? I'll give you my code. They can play against me. Okay, so here I want to go place. I want to buy some Magic cards. I'm going to go down over to here into Magic the Gathering. I'm going to go over here to the top sellers. Give me that one here, and I'm going to explain what I think. Now I know this is week 2. I know you guys have been doing this exactly 6 days at this point. We're trying to do this assignment. I want you, in your best way, to tell me what you think the back-end database of this looks like. Okay. Like, how does this backend, like, how is this backend to work? I'm not expecting perfect work. I'm expecting, this is like when do you remember back when you were in 7th grade math on the first day of school, they give you a math test for everything you're going to learn this year to see what you knew? That's what this is. So just do your best. Find a website. It can be any website. I suggest not using like ancestry.com or family search because those databases will make your head explode if you try to figure them out. Find something simple, a website that you use. Doesn't have to be a sales website, just someplace like I can search things, the library, whatever. and just explain what you think the back end looks like to me for 5 minutes. And make sure your face is on screen so I can say, I know that that was Philip. I know that was Aaron. They haven't hired someone to do the class for them. Okay.
So are you saying we'll make like an ERD, like the tables and everything like that?
Sure. If you want to, that's totally fine. You can draw an ERD. You can do what you think it's going to look like. You can kind of rough it out. But like I said, this is for most of y'all, this is week 2, 6 days in. You know, this ERD is on the complicated side, but do whatever you feel comfortable with. Let me know what your level of understanding is here. Okay. And then when we talk about the final project, you'll understand where this comes from. Okay. So that's the reverse engineering sentiment. That's all it is. Please just look at a website, give me an idea on how the back end works, explain it to me, record it, and upload it to YouTube or wherever you want, and I will watch it and I will give you some feedback on it, and we'll go from there. Okay. This is to get you out of writing a paper, and this is also to get you out of not having to do proctorio for quiz 6 or quiz 7. Okay. The papers. The papers are interesting. There is a very there's an attrition to them I find interesting because very few students will do the full 3 to 5 paragraph from week 1 all the way to week 14. They'll start 3 to 5 with 5 sentences each, and then by like week 14 is like 3 sentences. Each sentence is a paragraph. We're going to call it what it is. Every week it's an abstract topic. Every week it's just kind of trying to put into words what you've learned. I would like, if you write the papers, I would like to see code in them. Like if you're talking about how an inner join works, show me some code for inner join, kind of make it interesting. However, if at week 3 you choose to do the final project, the weekly papers become more of a journal entry to me, telling me how you're doing on your final project. So if you choose to do the final project, the papers no longer work the way they say they here. They just become, hey, Brother Stevic, I did this on my project this week. I'm stuck here. I see this, blah, blah, and I will reply back to you on that. Okay, so if you choose the final project, that's what these become.
Status update.
Yes, basically status update. And really, in all honesty, for most people who end up doing the final project, they're usually on the Wednesday night meetings with me. And so a lot of the paper becomes, like we talked about on Wednesday night, I did this. So they end up being pretty short, pretty concise. So there's that. The papers aren't something to really stress about, you know, about 20% of the students in the class will never hear what I said about this, and they will just write these papers and move on with their life. And that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So did the preparation where you talked about, look at the sign, look at these sites here, reverse engineering, the paper. Okay, final options. So in week 3, we start talking about the final project. What the final project is, and I tell you about this now because you really need the full 14 weeks to flesh this out to begin with. This is, and the reason this exists is because 3 or 4 years ago, we're like, there is no design element to this class at all, and it's called database and it's database administration and design. We really should have a design element. They said, okay, let's do a final project. So what the final project is between now and week 13, you will design the back end of a database. You will choose a database that you want to make, and you will design the back end of it. It will have 8 to 12 tables. It will have a relational model. You will write a bunch of queries against it. You will populate those data. You will create an ERD for an 8 to 10 table database. You will show me all the columns, the data types, and everything goes into those tables. You will create the code to populate those tables. Okay. You will create the code to create what's called test cases, meaning here is how I'm going to present the data to my users who use this application. In the past, students have done record collections. They have done bookstores. They have done dog daycare centers. They have done medical supply companies. They have done trucking companies. One student last semester did a database backend for He was an Uber driver or an Uber Eats driver. So we did a database so everyone would know like where the bathrooms are when you drive around in Uber Eats. Whatever you feel like doing. I haven't run across a bad idea yet. The only ideas I've ever run across are ideas that suddenly require like 87 tables and you're halfway done. So start kind of thinking about it now. This is the example I give. Had I been a smarter man about 15 years ago, I would be a multimillionaire right now, because I was in my database programming day. I just become a C# developer. I knew how to code the front ends. I knew how to code the back ends. And I'm sitting at Chili's with my friends. And I'm frustrated because the waitress hasn't come over yet to pay. And I said, you know what? And tablets and personal devices were just now starting to be real. And I said, what we should do is we should develop some kind of application that runs on a small console at the table that people can pay their checks when they're done at the application and then go home. So you don't have to wait for the waitress anymore. And I put that out in the world. I never did anything with it. And now when you go to Chili's, what do they got? A little tablet. Swipe it and go. So sadly, someone took my idea, and that's fine. I wouldn't be here teaching this class. I might still be. I would love teaching, so I probably would, if I were doing it, I'd still do it. But so I've had students who come up with ideas for final project that I've encouraged them to build a front end for, because there is a market for it. One student 2 semesters ago wrote this really great back end for a scheduling application for a preschool, for like a VPK, a daycare center. And it was a well-developed back end. I encouraged her to find someone to develop the front end and team up and sell it to people, because, you know, in this day and age of apps, I mean, who knows what you can do, right? Make a little phone app and sell it for 99 cents on the Google store, and you might make like $25 a year. It's $25. It's like, you know, a third of a tank of gas at this point, right?
A third.
Anywho, so yeah, so with this, you have to create the back end, the ERD, the code that creates the tables, the code that populates the data, write the test cases, do either a PowerPoint presentation or a video presentation explaining it to me, what the project is, how everything works, walk me through it, and a mock-up of what the front end would look like. Not the entire front end of the entire application, just one particular part of it. For example, the person who did the doggy daycare, they did the screen that you would like register the appointment online. Okay, so it was just one of them, and they walked through it. So at this point in time, day 1, day 3, it might seem a little overwhelming, but really it is a fun project. Everyone is appreciated. I get more and more students doing it every year. It does get you out of the final exam. It does get you out of writing the papers. And honestly, you can decide on week 13, after all the work, that you're just going to take the final exam anyway and not finish the project. I'm not going to be mad. And with the final exam being an open book test, I wouldn't blame you for taking it, because really 2 times on an open book test is nothing to sneeze at. But yeah, so that's your final project. It's really, like I said, it's fun to do. It's a great exercise. It's also, if you're looking for work in the database field afterward, it's good for a portfolio. So you can show people the code you've written, you know, say, hey, I designed a database, you know, and that's always good to show they have experience designing it from scratch. So that pretty much covers everything I need to cover with you guys tonight.
I've already got some ideas.
Huh?
I've already got some ideas. I just hope we don't get to 87 tables.
That's why when we talk about it a lot, if you come to these Wednesday meetings, we talk about it a lot. You'll send me your ERD, and what'll happen a lot of times is like you'll do this really broad thing. I'll say just focus on this part here. You know, I had one student last semester, before last, they had this whole database for it was auto parts, because his brother-in-law owned an auto parts store. So he had the whole inventory system, then he had the point of sale system, and all these databases going on. I was like, just right now, just focus on the inventory system. And that ended up being 14 tables. And then you could always add on. The great thing, there's what's it called?
And that's
Asset.
enough for this particular assignment.
Oh yeah, yeah. 12 tables is the max I suggest anyone do. But I'll take between 8 and 12. I'd like to see you center around 10. That's a good number, good, nice round number.
Okay, because I'm reading minimum of 12.
Oh yeah, like I said, I don't
Okay.
I don't write this, and I'm just too lazy to go in and change this. So just and honestly, what I've learned after I've been doing this for 6-7 years now. Most people don't ever read this because they do the project without ever seeing this, because they'll hear me talk about it and I'll do some write-ups about it, and then they'll start doing it and they'll never even look at this. So
I'm going to be probably the opposite, because it'll mess with my OCD if I don't read it.
That's totally fine.
And they'll probably end up taking it too far, and you'll have to tell me to back off.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. I just don't want you to go to rabbit holes with this, but yeah, if you're going over 12 tables, I would just like try to find a way to cut it off, and just in development we have something called it's called component developing. So it's like you it used to be like when you write code back in the day when you're doing on the punch cards and everything, you'd like write like 30,000 lines of code for the application, right? But now what they do is they write just different like segments of code. Like here's the segment, here's the segment, and you just put all the segment, you knit them together with other things, right? So you do component based. So databases work roughly the same way. If you're doing like if you're doing a database system for a large company, right? And they've got like, let's say it's a large supermarket chain. So you're gonna have like an inventory section, you're gonna have a point of sale section, you're gonna have an employee section, you're gonna have like an HR section and a hurt insurance section. So you don't develop all of things at once. Matter of fact, when you develop something like that, you look at the team and go, okay, you develop the inventory system, you develop that, you develop that, you develop that. And then you as the manager kind of link everything together, make sure everything kind of flows together, right? So you just connect all the dots. So if you get down a rabbit hole where you're like, crap, I'm at like 120 tables, like, back up saying, okay, if I were assigning the work out to somebody, like what would be one section of this be? What would be one component of this application be? And just work on that one component. And in week 2 or 3, we will go through how I design databases and kind of walk through how I do it. And then you get an idea of how it kind of blossoms out. You start with one table and just go from there. And then you just gotta go, I'm stopping here. But I do absolutely encourage people to do the project, because it is a lot of fun. When it's all said and done, it's a lot of fun to do the project. Plus it gets you right out of that, it gets you out of the papers, and that alone is a gift.
So if we choose the final project, we don't have to take the final, and for those papers, we just type up something and submit it based on what we're working on for the final project, correct?
Yeah, like this week, I mean, this week, even if you decide now you're going to do the final project, you can start this week to do the papers. Okay, I heard about the final project this week. Here's my ideas. I'm thinking about doing either like a comic book collection system, or I'm thinking about doing a dog breeding system, or I'm thinking about doing like, a way to keep track of like, personal expenses when it comes to like, public transportation, anything like that. And you can start like fleshing out ideas, and as the weeks go on, like after week 2 or 3, like week 2, like, hey, so I've kind of focused on this one idea. So I'm like kind of trying to figure out how the day, I know I'm going to need, like, I've decided that I'm going to do the comic book collection system. So I know I'm going to need a table for comics, and I know I'm going to need a table for companies, and kind of flesh that idea out there. And then like week 3 is like, oh, okay, so here's what we're doing here, and here's where I am. And then week 4, like, you'll show me, these are what the ERD is starting to look like. We're fleshing this out now. In week 5, here's some more stuff. Okay, week 6, here's the complete ERD. Week 7, I'm starting to write the code, because this has to be turned in by the end of week 13.
Got it.
Okay. Or I'm not gonna be able to grade it, because I get more and more it takes me about 25 minutes to grade each of them. Because how I grade it is, you send me the code. I have the code to create the database. So I take your code and I run it. And hopefully it creates the data. If it runs it perfectly, I take your code to populate the tables. I run that. If that works, woo. And then I take the code for the test cases. I run each one of them, see if they work. I comment on those, and then I watch a little video or look at the PowerPoint. I look at the front end, and then I, give you my feedback. So yeah. So if you choose to do it, then the papers become that. There's no final exam, and you just got to do the quizzes and the exercises every week and the reading and stuff. A word on the quizzes and a word on the exercises. Again, I didn't write the course. I try to get in there to fix the questions. There are many questions that I've tried to get fixed over the course of the last 5 years that have not been fixed yet. So I try to get in there before you to delete them or change them or modify them. If you get a question that doesn't make sense, if you get a question that is completely contradictory, and like if it's like the book says the answer is orange and the quiz says the answer is chartreuse, let me know, remind me, I'll go and take care of it. I'll give you the credit. I'll fix the grade up. Don't sweat it. There are some questions on the quizzes that aren't added in the reading anywhere. It's never even discussed, but they're there in the quiz anyway. The exercise, I don't think the exercises, let me look at this week's exercises. Let me see. I don't think they've changed yet. Let me see. Let me jump down here to week 6's exercises. And I'll tell you if they've changed or not. It'd be nice if they did. No, they have not changed this exercise yet. They've threatened to several times, and they still have not. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a secret about the exercises. In your book, there are exercises, and the answers are in the back of the book. Guess where the exercises on the sites come from? I tell you this now because, no lie, I've had students come to me extremely guilty to repent that they've looked at the answers in the back of the book. I'm like, that's what they're there for. We know, we put them there. I've never openly said this on the first day of class, but I'm going to say this. Now, there are some that have been added that are not from the book that you're going to have to figure out on your own. But there is nothing wrong with figuring it out on your own and then looking at the book to make sure you got it right. There is definitely nothing wrong with that. Reverse engineering code works. I'm totally fine with it. Okay. Don't copy the answer on the back of the book and put it verbatim in the response, because I will know. Don't just change 2 words, because we'll know. Okay. Use it as a guide, write your own code, use it to make sure it works. That's totally fine. They were supposed to change it to that where every exercise had 5 exercises, each worth 2 points, but they haven't done that yet. So, oh well, I will not lose sleep over that. Okay. Exercises, yeah. I think that's it. Please try to keep the discussions going, the discussion boards. I've given up trying to have a student do what's it?
Devotional.
Yeah, devotional leader. It used to be a grade. It's not a grade anymore. It's just an optional. So I will be the devotional leader for the next 13 weeks. I will put a post there. Please consider posting and having a conversation scripturally. This is BYU Idaho. We try to instill the values of the scriptures in the conversations. But and it's hard to do when you're talking about databases, because I don't like, well, in the Gospel of Matthew, they talk about database, which they don't. So I always do them extraneous to this. You'll also notice that I don't necessarily start these meetings with prayers, because I don't like recording prayers. It's weird for me. So I apologize for that. Just so you know, I'm not I am a fully functional member of the church. I'm in the bishopric in my ward. I do my stuff. I just, when I'm in database mode, I don't think scripturally sometimes. So yeah. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any comments?
Nope, I think I got it.
All right. You good, Aaron?
Yep.
Okay. All my contact information is there. Feel free to text me, call me, email me. I'm usually pretty responsive. Please remember, I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So I'm 2 hours ahead of you. I'm 2 hours in the future. Yes, I'm 2 hours in the future. Well, where are you?
I'm in Texas.
You're in Texas. Okay,
I'm in Houston.
I'm 1 hour in the future. And Aaron, you're in
California.
So I'm 3 hours in the future from you. So I'm the future is good. Everything is fine so far.
Oh, good.
And it's tomorrow in Australia, so we're okay for tomorrow. What is it? That was a Snoopy thing I saw a long time ago. Don't worry about the world ending today because it's already tomorrow in Australia. So there you go. We'll leave it with that. If there are no questions, we'll call it a night. Like I said, feel free to contact me about anything. And then just on the Wednesday, next Wednesday, we'll talk about, I think next week all about select queries and how to write select queries. We'll talk a little bit about the final project. Week 3 is, I think it's updates and inserts. And we'll talk about the private project. And then week 4 is my favorite week. It's joins. We start talking about how to make tables talk to each other. And that's a lot of fun. And then we start talking, and from week 5, 6 on, we talk a lot about the final project and less about the code, because what ends up happening between week 2 and week 5, I've given you all the code you need to do the entire semester. Because I start talking about things like in week 3, when we talk about joins, I start talking about commands that you're not going to see until week 8 or 9. So I'm laying the groundwork for you guys to get that stuff done so you can really focus on the project by that point in time. All right. I don't know if it'll just be the 3 of us for the entire semester. Maybe more people will come along, but usually the people who show up on the first week are the ones who stick with me the entire semester. So we'll see each other every week.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem, guys. If there's anything, just let me know. I will talk to you next
Thanks.
week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.